I want to start today with a bit of a thought experiment. It's a little heavy, so brace yourself, but I promise we are going somewhere with this. Imagine you are walking through a really dense, fog-covered forest.
Okay, set in the scene. I like it.
Yeah, and you've been walking for years. You are just completely exhausted, and you're carrying a backpack that is weighed down with every mistake, every trauma, every regret you've ever had, just digging into your shoulders.
So basically, the emotional baggage we all carry just made literal.
Exactly, literal baggage. And suddenly you find a clearing. And right in the middle of this dirt clearing is a weathered wooden door, just standing upright by itself. And you know with this absolute metaphysical certainty that if you open that door and step through, the backpack is gone. The trauma. It never happened. The absolute worst day of your life is just erased.
Man, that is the ultimate reset button. I mean, it's the fantasy we all have at 3 in the morning when we can't sleep.
It really is. But here is the price tag. If you walk through, you get the happy life, sure. But the you that exists right now, the version of you that actually survived that forest, all the wisdom you earned from that pain, it's wiped out completely. You are unmade. So the question is, do you turn the handle?
See, that is the exact question that completely defines the two texts we're breaking down today. It's this massive clash of identity versus comfort. Like, is the scar part of who you are, or is it just damage?
And we are going on a deep dive today into two absolute heavyweights of speculative fiction to answer that. We're looking at The Throat of Forgotten Sons by Penix Robor-Kudelton, and then its darker, much sharper sibling text, The Unmaking of Veth Dolorran by Apenex Hohen Hockett.
And we should probably clarify for everyone right off the bat, these authors are often described in literary circles as sibling selves.
Which is such a weird term.
Right, because whether that means they're literal siblings writing in the same universe, or if they're just two pseudonyms for the exact same fractured psyche, critics have been arguing about that for decades. The prose styles are wildly distinct, but the themes just lock together perfectly.
I really do feel like two sides of the same coin. Penix gives us this story about harmony, restoration, and light. And then Apenex gives us, well, friction, war, pure grit.
And just absolute crushing existential dread.
Lots of dread, lots of dread. But what I really love about this pairing is that they aren't just cool sci-fi adventures. They are exploring two completely distinct philosophies on how to deal with the dying universe. On one side, you have this idea of active acceptance, and on the other, you have defiance without hope.
And both of those roads lead us right to this concept of the engineers and the metaphysics of choice. I mean, it's going to get a little trippy today, but the payoff is incredibly worth it.
Oh, I am so ready for trippy. So we've got three main stops on the map today. First, we're going to walk with Kaelith, who is the survivor trying to wake up a valley of sleeping gods. Then we're going to grab a sword with Veth Dolorran and fight a literal void. And finally, we'll see how these two completely different stories crash into each other to explain the concept of the unmade.
Let's start with Penix, The Throat of Forgotten Sons.
Yes, please set the stage for us. Because this world, just the visual language of it is absolutely stunning. It feels like a fever dream in an art gallery.
It really does. So imagine a sky illuminated by 3 dying suns. You have Keth, Sorith, and Valamir. And they're dimming, turning these deep bruised shades of purple and orange. And in this eternal twilight world, there is a location called the Valley of Amber Silence.
Which is just a great name. It sounds like a place where you take a very intense nap.
A very, very long nap, essentially. Because the valley is filled with what look like statues, massive frozen giants. And these are the engineers. In the lore of the book, they were a civilization that spent eons calculating the ultimate purpose of the universe. They ran the math, they did the physics, and they finally found the ultimate answer.
And the answer was ourselves.
Exactly, ourselves. They realized that consciousness isn't just some random byproduct of the universe, it is the actual engine. Consciousness observes reality, and by observing it, it solidifies it. The engineers realized that every single thought they had was essentially writing the underlying code of reality.
And that completely freaked them out, which honestly I get. If I thought my bad mood could accidentally cause a thunderstorm, I'd probably just stay in bed too.
Oh, it terrified them. Imagine the paralyzing responsibility of knowing that if you have a stray negative thought, you might accidentally unmake an entire star system. So faced with that absolute burden of authorship, they stopped. They froze themselves in time to avoid making any mistakes.
Talk about performance anxiety on a cosmic scale. So the whole world is basically decaying because the builders are on strike. And into this totally silent valley walks our protagonist, Vasharel.
Vasharel is, man, she's tough. She is the ultimate survivor. She crashed onto this world as a child, lost her entire family in the wreck. She spent 40 years just scraping by in the ruins. And she carries this artifact with her. It's a broken knife.
I really want to pause on the knife because it comes up so much in the text. It's completely useless as an actual weapon, right? Like, you can't cut anything with it at all.
Practically speaking, yes, it's useless. It's snapped in half. It's rusted. But symbolically, it is everything to her. It represents her trauma. It's the jagged edge of her life that just never healed. She carries it absolutely everywhere. And she heads to the throat, which is this metaphysical opening in the ground right in the center of the Engineer's Valley.
Because she wants answers. She wants to know if her 40 years of suffering actually meant anything.
Exactly. And the throat, which is a mechanism built by these frozen engineers, offers her the exact deal we talked about in the intro. It shows her a timeline where the ship didn't crash. She sees herself growing up warm, loved, perfectly safe. She sees her parents alive.
It's the ultimate temptation. Just take one step through and the pain is gone. But she doesn't do it.
She doesn't. And her reasoning is so profound. She looks at that happy, safe version of herself, and she realizes she doesn't recognize that person at all. She realizes that the Vasharel who survived, the one with the scars and the rusted, broken knife, is real. The trauma, as terrible as it was, forged her consciousness.
Right, because if she erases the pain, she erases the person who survived it. She is essentially choosing to keep the broken knife because it's the only thing that proves she actually fought.
Precisely. So she refuses the door, and in that pivotal moment, she takes a new name, Kaelith. And she coins a term that becomes the central philosophy of the book, Vareshkai.
Vareshkai. I absolutely love this definition. It translates to the motion of something that doesn't know it's stopped.
It sounds totally paradoxical, doesn't it?
It sounds like physics gone wrong. Break that down for us a bit.
So in normal physics, we have inertia, right? An object in motion stays in motion until acted upon. But Vareshkai is spiritual inertia. It's the idea that when all external reason to keep going is gone, when the suns are literally dying, when all hope is lost, when your fuel tank is completely empty, you keep moving anyway, not because you're being pushed by anything, but because you are the motion.
It's persistence as an identity, not a strategy. You don't move to get somewhere specific. You move because moving is what you are.
Exactly. But here is the massive twist in the book. Kaelith wasn't the only one to find the throat. The narrative reveals that over thousands of years, millions of people actually did take the deal. They stepped through the door to get their happy ending.
And this is where the sci-fi element gets genuinely dark. What happens to them? Do they just vanish from the valley?
Well, they get their happy ending, but it's in a pocket reality. In the real world, they leave behind what the book calls a shadow. It's a silhouette of the choice they didn't make. So the entire valley is absolutely full of them. They're just standing there looking like static in the air.
Just ghosts as the unmade choice. That is incredibly spooky.
It is. And Kaelith, armed with this new philosophy of Reshkai, starts collecting them. She realizes these shadows aren't just cosmic trash. They are potential energy. They are second chances that were casually discarded.
Which sets up the climax of the book, which is just visually wild. She marches back to the throat with an army of these static shadows.
200,000 shadows. It is a retroactive refusal. She brings these entities back to the door and essentially gives them the agency to choose again. She asks the shadows, do you want to fade away, or do you want to carry the weight of being real?
And they choose to be real.
They do, and that critical mass of consciousness, that sudden massive surge of 200,000 entities choosing to exist despite the pain, it acts like a defibrillator for the universe. It wakes up the engineers.
The frozen giants finally open their eyes.
They realize that if these broken, ghostly fragments can bear the horrible weight of existence, then gods have absolutely no excuse. It breaks the silence. The three suns flare back to life. It is the ultimate victory for active acceptance. Kaelith accepts the broken knife, and in doing so, she heals the world.
It's beautiful. It really is inspiring. It's the light side of the coin. But now we have to look at the other side. Because not everyone gets to wake up gods. Some people just have to fight in the mud.
Yeah. It is definitely time to leave the Valley of Amber Silence.
Enter the unmaking of Veth Dolorran. We are moving from harmony to pure, unfiltered grit.
We are in the city of Ashavar, right on the edge of the Blighted Sea. It's a total ruin. And our protagonist, Veth Dolorran, is basically the anti-Kaelith.
He is a mercenary. He carries this massive sword named thirst, very subtle naming conventions there from Apnix, that literally drinks the blood of what it kills to get heavier. And his defining personality trait is that he has absolutely zero hope.
Zero. Kaelith was looking for meaning. Veth is just looking for a good death. He fights on a ship called the Black Meridian, and he is fighting against this entity called the Hunger Beneath.
Let's really talk about the hunger, because it's not just a big monster with teeth, right? It's way more metaphysical than that.
Right. The Hunger Beneath is an ancient cosmic entity that eats worlds. But it doesn't eat rocks and water and trees. It feeds on despair. Specifically, it eats the moment when hope fails.
So if I'm fighting the monster and I think to myself, maybe I can win this, and then I suddenly realize, oh no, I'm going to lose that gap, that horrible drop in my stomach, that is its actual food.
Exactly. It devours the difference between expectation and reality.
Yeah.
It eats disappointment, which makes it almost impossible to beat, because usually heroes have hope, and hope creates the potential for despair, which just makes the hunger stronger.
But Veth completely breaks the system.
Because Veth does not hope. He knows, for an absolute fact, he is going to die. He knows the city will fall. He knows the universe is ending. But he swings the sword anyway.
Why, though? If you know you're going to lose, why even fight? That seems incredibly inefficient.
That is the exact question that drives the hunger insane. There's this line in the text, I actually think it's the best line Ebenex ever wrote, where the hunger is trying to consume Veth's mind, and it completely fails. And the narrator says you cannot eat a verb.
You cannot eat a verb. Man, that stopped me in my tracks when I read it. Unpack that for us.
The hunger consumes nouns. It consumes outcomes, destinies, failures. Those are static things. A victory is a noun. A defeat is a noun. But Veth proves that the act of choosing the verb, the fighting itself, exists entirely independently of the outcome.
So I'm not fighting to win. I am fighting because I am a fighter. The action is its own justification.
Yes. It is defiance purely for the sake of defiance. It's pure existential rebellion. Veth completely divorces the action from the result. And because there is no result he is attached to, there is absolutely nothing for the hunger to eat.
That is incredibly punk rock. It's like cosmic punk rock.
It really is. It's saying, I don't care if the venue burns down, I am finishing the guitar solo.
But he doesn't do it entirely alone, right? We definitely have to mention Seneth.
Oh, Seneth is crucial to the story. She's a former princess turned monk who travels with him. She wields something called the veil, which is described as the space between spaces. If Veth is raw, unbridled force, Seneth is the discipline. She creates what she calls the door that chooses. She essentially focuses his blind rage into something sharp enough to cut reality.
And this leads us to the massive climax of Veth's story at the Island of Broken Teeth. Again, Apenex with the cheery, welcoming names.
Terrible vacation spot, 0 stars. So there is a massive arch there, which is a seal that is physically holding back the hunger from consuming the rest of the world, and the seal is cracking. Now, the classic hero move here would be to sacrifice yourself to reinforce the seal, right?
Put your back against the door, hold it shut with your own body.
Right. But Veth realizes that's a losing game. As long as he is trying to save the world, he is creating the fear of failure, which just feeds the hunger. So he does something completely insane. He shatters the arch.
He breaks the only thing protecting them.
He destroys the entire structure. He introduces absolute chaos. He bets everything on uncertainty.
So he forces a situation where there is no safe outcome, meaning there is no fear to feed on. He just flips the board across the room.
Exactly. He introduces pure, unreasoning choice into the equation. He swings thirst, breaks the seal, and creates a massive vacuum of probability. And the universe, recognizing that raw, undeniable act of will, has to fill that vacuum. The seal actually rebuilt itself, stronger. Not because of magic, but because Veth's absolute refusal to surrender was a stronger law of physics than the hunger's desire to eat.
Okay, so let's recap before we bring these two worlds together. We have Kaelith, who saves the world by accepting her past and waking the builders. Active acceptance.
And we have Veth, who saves the world by punching darkness in the face, even though he knows it's totally pointless. Defiance without hope.
You'd think these are complete opposite philosophies. But then we get to the third act, the synthesis. Because these stories aren't actually separate, are they?
They aren't. And this is the part that just blows the minds of everyone who reads both books. In the much later years of Veth's story, aboard a ship appropriately named Nothing Left, they discover the truth about the Unmade.
This twist actually made me put the book down and just stare at the wall for a minute.
It changes everything you thought you knew. Veth and his companion, Lyrith, discover that the engineers Kaelith's giant statues didn't just build a world to live in it. They built it to keep something out. or rather, to keep something from becoming real.
The Unmade.
The Unmade isn't a monster. It is the pressure of everything that never happened. It is the crushing weight of every potential timeline that was denied existence.
Wait, so every time I make a choice, if I choose to drink coffee instead of tea,
Yeah.
the tea timeline doesn't just vanish.
In this universe, no. It becomes waste heat. It becomes pressure. It presses against the very walls of reality. And here's the profound tragedy of Veth's life. By fighting the hunger, by slamming doors shut and constantly holding the line, he was actually pressurizing the system.
He was making it worse.
He was feeding the Unmade. Every single time he sealed a crack to save the present, the pressure just built up somewhere else. The hunger beneath wasn't even the real enemy. It was a symptom. It was the Unmade trying to burst through the pipes because Veth kept tightening all the valves.
Wow. So Kaelith is opening doors to heal the past, and Veth is slamming them shut to save the present, and they are unknowingly caught in this massive metaphysical tug-of-war.
Exactly. And this all culminates in the concept of the last door. A door made of pure light in a complete void of nothingness. This is where the true synthesis happens. The text suggests that to have a stable reality, you absolutely need both archetypes.
You need the builder and the soldier.
You need Kaelith's new calculus, the understanding that we author reality by observing it. She builds the house. But you also need Veth's stubborn, unreasonable defiance to hold the walls up while the concrete dries.
Veth buys the time. Kaelith writes the story.
That is the perfect summary. Kaelith eventually transitions. She doesn't die in the traditional sense. She becomes part of the background of reality. She becomes the foundation itself. She integrates the shadows, all those regrets, and says, these matter too. She builds a reality big enough to actually hold failure.
And Veth, does he get a happy ending?
Veth continues. His ending is incredibly bittersweet. He doesn't become a god. He stays a man with a sword. He fights forever, always searching for the last door, but he's no longer fighting in despair. He is fueled by the knowledge that he is, as the hunger called him, inconvenient.
Inconvenient to the cosmos. I love that as a badge of honor. I am a problem for the universe.
He forces the universe to acknowledge him. He is the friction that proves the world is actually real. Because without friction, there is no movement. Without Veth, Kaelith's harmony is just stagnation.
So we've got space gods, blood-drinking swords, and voids of entropy. But why does this matter to us listening today? Most of us aren't fighting cosmic horrors. We're just trying to get through the work week.
But aren't we fighting horrors in our own way? I think the metaphor holds up beautifully. The core message of both Penex and Apenex is about agency. It's about what we could call the architecture of choice.
Tell me more about that.
Both Kaelith and Veth are dealing with the constant threat of being unmade. Kaelith is offered the chance to unmake her history, to delete her trauma and be comfortable. Veth is threatened with being unmade by a literal force of entropy.
And both of them say no.
They refuse. And that refusal is the very engine of existence. The engineers discovered that the universe isn't some machine that just runs on autopilot. It is a question. And consciousness, us, we are the answer. We aren't just living inside the universe. We are actively authoring it by choosing to persist.
It really goes back to that word from the beginning of our discussion, Vareshkai.
The motion of something that doesn't know it's stopped.
You know, when you first hear it, it sounds really sad, like you're a zombie just shambling forward without a purpose. But by the end of the books, it feels incredibly triumphant.
It is triumphant. It means you are generating your own momentum. You aren't moving because the laws of physics pushed you, or because your parents told you to, or because society expects you to. You are moving because you decided to move. That pure agency is what scared the engineers into silence. They were terrified of that power.
But Veth uses that exact power to beat the hunger.
The realization that we are fundamentally responsible for the next moment. That's the key. Veth's sword. Thirst. Remember how it got heavier the more he killed?
Yeah.
After he makes that massive choice at the arch, the text explicitly says the blade became lighter. Not because the metal physically changed, but because the weight of murder was replaced by the weight of purpose. He wasn't just killing anymore, he was defining boundaries. He was standing there saying, this exists and that does not.
And on the other side, Kaelith takes all the regrets the unlived lives in the valley and says, these are part of the structure too.
Exactly. It is the perfect balance of Penex and Apenex. Harmony and friction. You cannot have a true story without both. You need the acceptance of what has happened and the defiance to shape what happens next.
So if we go all the way back to that door in the forest, the one I asked you about at the very start, the one that offers to wipe away the trauma and just give you the easy life.
Yeah. if you take the deal, you become a shadow. You become a what if. You essentially become a ghost in someone else's story.
But if you walk away, if you decide to keep the heavy backpack, if you hold on to the broken knife,
Then you become real. You become an author of reality. You become Vareshkai.
I think I'll keep the knife.
As would I, even if it cuts.
This has been a really incredible journey through the archives of Penix and Apenix. Two totally different views on how to face the end of the world, but both leading to the exact same conclusion. Don't blink.
And whatever you do, don't stop moving.
We want to leave you with a thought to really chew on today. We talked a lot about Vareshkai as the motion of something that doesn't know it's stopped. But I want you to flip that around for your own life. Are you moving simply because you haven't realized you've stopped? Or are you moving because you have chosen to never stop?
The difference between those two things is absolutely everything.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you in the next reality.